life and death, destiny and great deeds, answers to mysteries, the search for one's true path. The mind can comprehend all of these, and then such concepts can be written down as a sequence of formulas, a series of lines, a chain of thought. Still, a moment always comes when it is time to wrap up, to reach a conclusion, to put a period at the end of the last sentence. The impossible rift, the bleeding wound that had tormented all of Golarion for 100 years, was finally healed. The great deed demanded a great sacrifice, the life of the one known as the commander of the Fifth Crusade. His cause and his death shook minds and souls, not just on Golarion and in the Abyss, but on other planes as well, and even in the halls of the gods. The commander never appeared before Pharasma, for Mephistopheles had already laid claim to his soul. The commander was reborn in hell and became Asmodeus' loyal lieutenant, a relentless warrior of hell, and the standard against which all future generations of Hell Knights would measure themselves. After the victory over the Worldwound, the former wasteland was soon transformed. Under the devil's influence, the roads were swiftly turned into wide trade routes. Throughout the region, small settlements appeared where one could purchase anything and everything. And like clockwork, the revenues raised via taxation were sent to line the coffers of hell. Those who refused to pay taxes were sent to receive the devil's justice. One could, however, avoid court altogether by paying an official fine or a less official bribe. Despite numerous exhortations from Queen Abigail, the region never became a protectorate of Cheliacs. The firm hand of Mephistopheles himself could be felt in all the laws and decisions made in the region, and even though he rarely appeared in public, his unseen presence weighed heavily on many. Although the commander became the symbol of the Fifth Crusade, there were still those among the Crusaders who were dissatisfied with his decisions. Years later, their words served as the basis for many alternate versions of the history of the struggle against the Worldwound. Many believed that Dresden would have a bright future as an independent political power, but the city never established strong diplomatic ties, remaining in the eyes of the world no more than a willful province of Mendev. With the war concluded, most of its defenders hastily left Dresden. The memory of the terrible sacrifices made in the battles for the city was too hard to bear. Within a century, Dresden had become a dilapidated, insignificant backwater. Queen Galfrey returned to Nerosian with the intent to rule Mendev as before, but as it turned out, Mendevian society was hungry for change. The war-ravaged nation desired new leadership, but the queen would not countenance yielding her authority to anyone else. She believed her duty to her homeland had not yet been fulfilled. The ward stones from the chain that once guarded the borders of Mendev were carefully disassembled, one by one. The angels that had been trapped inside returned to heaven to heal their wounded spirits and prepare for new battles against evil. The victory over the Worldwound changed many things, not just on Golarion, but in the Midnight Isles as well. Nocticula spent many days pondering the words of a certain young and fearless prophet. Before long, the Lady in Shadow openly renounced her realm and named herself the Redeemer Queen. This revolt against her own demonic nature transformed Nocticula, severed her ties to the Abyss, and brought her to Elysium. There, upon creating a realm named Midnight's Palette, the Redeemer Queen attained divine power and became the patroness of exiles. The now vacant throne was instantly seized by Chimera the Ardent Dream. However, her power could not compare to the might of the Lady in Shadow. The Midnight Isles, which had become a tempting prize for many demons, were plunged into chaos. The demon lord Baphomet suffered a defeat. The Worldwound was closed and the convenient passage to Golarion was sealed along with it. Baphomet shifted his attention to the realms of the other Demon Lords. A cell of the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth was soon discovered in Shinra. The Demon Lord Deskari suffered a defeat. He bided his time, continuing to plot his invasion of Golarion, and after that, of heaven itself. The cultists that remained on Golarion went mad one after another, tortured by the nightmarish dreams their lord sent to them. The Tirabades were adamant about retiring from military service, leaving it all behind and escaping together. But urgent Eagle Watch business forced them to stay for a week, then for a month, then for many years. Even as Anivia cursed their lot, however, her eyes would shine with pride, for she was always the first to admit that Erebeth was not the kind of person who could just up and retire. Shortly after the war against the Worldwound, Avestan was struck by a series of frightening events. A magical storm woven from the four elements obliterated an entire city in Varisia. Then, a horrible pestilence came to the lands of the Lenorm kings, and after that, Irisen reported an outbreak of madness in their lands. The lunatics were all repeating the same ominous warning, word for word. The slaves have forgotten the hand of their master, but Alderpash, Rune Lord of Wrath, has returned to remind them just how firm his grip is. The storyteller, as old as the tales he collected, continued his travels across Golarion and occasionally beyond. He knew that out there somewhere, there was one story he would never find, his own. The Bladesmith did some good work on Finian after getting him back from the commander. The former Pathfinder became a fearsome weapon that constantly hungered for blood. The wounds dealt by the weapon would refuse to heal completely. Once again, Seela heard the call of the open road. Even a valiant paladin can be prone to self-doubt, and after everything that had happened to her, Seela wanted to sort out her conflicting thoughts and emotions on her own. Having properly fulfilled his duty to the mongrels and, to his surprise, avoided death, Lan was suddenly faced with a choice: what to do with his life now that it wasn't going to end anytime soon. His hesitation did not last long, and just a few months later, he went on a sea voyage to see the world he had saved. After the war, the Huntress left the commander's service and, having cobbled together a band of ruthless mercenaries out of veteran crusaders, went to the River Kingdoms to conquer one of them for herself. For a handful of years, she ruled over a dozen villages until the local lords joined forces to put an end to her reign. After the victory, Ember simply sat for a long time, staring at the tongues of flame dancing in her hands. Her new powers frightened her. The awestruck redeemed were ready to hang on her every word, and that frightened her even more. She left without saying goodbye to anyone, and continued her endless wayfaring along the roads of Golarion, helping the distressed and punishing evildoers. Many worshipped her as a saint, but she would always respond with, "Please, I'm just an ordinary girl." Soon after the war, the tireless researcher of all things researchable embarked on a new journey. She had a sudden urge to know how long it would take to visit every nation on Golarion. The only evidence of the events that happened to her during the Fifth Crusade is a short article in the Encyclopedia Golarianaca recounting the end of the plane merging experiment of the great Areelu Vorlesh. To his own surprise, Woljif Jefto became a war hero. Esteem and fame were shortly followed by great wealth. The Thiefling did not let his newfound fortune turn his head, but chose to invest the money in several profitable ventures and one charity for street urchins. Within a few years, his signature style came to include a top hat, a cane, and a bit of a belly. After the victory, Soseo returned home together with his brother. Now a famed Crusader hero, he humbly officiated at a temple of Shelyn, painted, grew sweet-smelling fruits, and made the best wine in the region. His kindly smile faded only when people asked him to recount his experiences in the war. He would not deny them, but he would speak without embellishment so that not a single listener would feel tempted to pick up a sword and leave in search of a hero's glory. When he returned home, Trevor restored the shield of Shelyn to its place in the church and swore never to pick up a weapon again. He tried to rediscover his woodcarving skills, but his wounded hands betrayed him, no longer willing to create beauty. The tormented fighter lived a quiet, peaceful life, helping his brother with his vineyard, all the while trying in vain to forget the horrors of the abyss. Reginald Derenge wrote a treatise on waging war against the demons, both a practical manual and a philosophical exhortation, and once that was done, he succumbed to the bleaching completely. He was posthumously reinstated in his order and buried with honors in the officers' cemetery. His treatise was used in all future wars against the abyss by mortals, angels, and devils alike. Some say that the part about devils was no coincidence and that the Knight's service continued even after his death, since one of the devils closest to the commander was the spitting image of Reginald. After the war, Graybor went off on his personal conquest. He traveled to Alan Shinra and killed 4 candidates for the position of the head of the Assassin's Guild, whereupon he rightfully took the position himself and became a preeminent figure in the Midnight Isles. Under his leadership, the guild prospered, and the denizens of many planes would shudder whenever they heard the innocent phrase, "Sweet dreams."
And what of me, the writer of these words? The half-demon witch known as the architect of the Worldwound. I was defeated and fell at the hand of the one I had tried to transform. My experiment ended in failure, and my life ended along with it. I have recounted the story of my life for you, Pharasma, Lady of Graves. Not only of my life, but of the Commander's also. I believe the tale of such an illustrious figure would pique even a goddess's curiosity. Now you know everything. I await your verdict, goddess.
Silence hangs over the boneyard. The Lady of Graves is weighing her decision, and it seems the entire universe is holding its breath, awaiting her pronouncement. Who would dare to break a silence so absolute? Intervene. Your consciousness coalesces into one whole, rejecting the oblivion of death. Your mythic powers are not entirely gone, and they entitle you to a say in this trial. Diplomacy. I appeal to your sense of justice. Great evil deserves a commensurate punishment. Your words ring out in the silence. They are heard, considered, and given their due weight.
The laws of the universe have existed for millennia. They are incontrovertible, but even they allow the decider of fate some degree of influence over the verdict. You wrought great evil. You killed countless souls and put existence itself under threat. Your soul is dark and incapable of atonement. Even the abyss would be a reward for you rather than a punishment. There is no place in the universe for one such as you. So be it. Now you, the mortal who has risen so high as to stand boldly in the presence of the goddess of fate. You have done the impossible, and you will be remembered as long as this universe exists. You have earned your peace.
Alright, those were the end scenes if you end the game as a devil. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, please leave me a like down below, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.